You guys saw the thumbnail. I have a special guest today. My wife's joining the channel. We're gonna do an interview. I'm gonna get her perspective on my sports card business. We're gonna kind of talk through the evolution of things from when I started up until now and kind of give people some tips and advice about getting your spouse or significant other on board with your sports card business. This is a huge piece of doing sports cards as a hobby or as a business or whatever. We're really passionate about it, so we wanted to share our experience. Hopefully it can help some of you guys out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as you're watching, and let's jump into it. Hey everyone, so this is my wife Susie. We're excited to talk about this today. Some people have concerns about how this hobby can impact their relationships, so we wanted to share our experience, how we have mitigated that, and some advice for you guys to do the same if you're facing similar challenges. So first we wanted to start off by, I guess Susie will just share her initial feelings that she had when I started this business, and we'll go from there.
So the first time that he brought it up with me was when we were dating, and full disclosure, I was concerned initially. I think part of that is just lack of understanding. I had no idea about sports cards or grading or what that was about, and I think he did a really good job at addressing concerns I had and explaining things to me in a way where it kind of helped ease those concerns. I think one of the biggest things that helped me feel comfortable with it was just, this isn't the case for everyone, but he had sold his childhood collection, so he had like a small chunk of change to get started, and we kind of just agreed then and there like that money was going to be separate from, I mean obviously we were dating at the time, but we wanted to get married, and so it was like, okay, this money's going to be completely separate from our other finances. And that has made all the difference for us, because if he gained a bunch of money and lost it all the next day, it didn't really matter, because to me that money didn't really exist. It's just money where he could try things out, learn, grow in the hobby. And you know, when he said more recently like, I'm gonna purchase this big card, it's like, I'm not stressed about that or trying to control his purchases, because that money, losing it, isn't gonna negatively impact our family at all.
So the next thing we kind of want to talk about, and Susie kind of led into it, is setting boundaries when it comes to money and with time. So with money, like she mentioned, it was really important for us to set a clear boundary with money that we could stick to. Our specific case isn't going to apply to everyone. Not everyone has old cards they can sell. Some people are in the later stages of life and they have more discretionary income than we do and we did at the time. So, you know, maybe for some people it will look like taking an amount from your savings or your discretionary income, whatever that may be, and starting with that. But whatever the case, it's just good to have those boundaries in mind, because we've seen in the hobby, all of us have seen many cases where things can spiral and get out of hand very quickly, as it's very easy to spend a lot of money on this hobby. So another important boundary, arguably even more important than a money boundary, is a boundary when it comes to time. So I want Susie to share her thoughts on that, kind of our experience and the things that are important to her when it comes to that.
Reed has always been really good at having priorities and having that reflected in how he spends his time. I've never felt like the hobby has taken over him helping out around the house or helping with our daughter or spending time with me and our daughter. And I think that that's also something that brought me a lot of comfort over time, is just seeing that the hobby wasn't going to overtake time as a family. And yeah, I think how you spend your time outside of work and your hobbies can make a big difference in the small things. If you are like actively helping out and actively giving your spouse time as well, I think it makes a huge difference in how they view the hobby, because they're not seeing the hobby as a roadblock to family time or whatever. It's just another aspect.
I would just add to that, when it comes to priorities, especially when you're just starting out, whatever your goals are, your sports card hobby or business should not be the first priority. And you need to be okay with that fact, and with the fact that there will be some days where you don't touch it at all, you know. And I think if you have your priorities straight and that's clear to your spouse or your significant other, you'll end up being able to spend more time on it, because your spouse won't feel like every time they give an inch you'll take a mile, if that makes sense. So if you're, like Susie said, if you're trying to be careful about how you spend your time outside of work and outside of the hobby, that really goes a long way in being able to spend more time in the hobby.
Yeah, that applies to everything. If you're looking out for your spouse, it's going to give them the freedom to look out for you better when they know that you have their best interest in mind and you're not constantly taking. They're going to look out for you and say, hey, I think it's your turn to take. Like, you've taken care of me, now let's take care of your needs and wants. So.
And just one more thing to this discussion, to this point, I think communication is huge. If you know that there's a day coming up where you're going to need to ship a lot of cards, if you have 20 auctions ending, give your spouse as much advance as you can. Over communicate. It's way better to over communicate than under communicate. Help them know what to expect. And if you have that communication, you won't be blindsiding your spouse, and you won't leave a bitter taste in their mouth.
And I think when you are open in your communication, your spouse trusts you more because they know there's not going to be a hidden surprise.
So the third point we wanted to talk about is supporting your spouse in their hobbies. Obviously, if you expect to be treated a certain way with your hobby, you should be more than willing to reciprocate that. So I wanted Susie to kind of give her insights on that, how we've implemented that, and just give her thoughts.
I think from the start, that's been something we've been open about in our relationship, is just supporting each other in your goals and dreams. Like Reed said, you can't really be upset if your spouse doesn't want to support you in your hobbies if you belittle and demean the things they're interested in. I think it's safe to say that Reed probably doesn't have a natural interest in some of the things that I do, but he's an active listener when I talk about the things I care about, and he really tries hard to give me time to work on my hobbies and the things that are important to me. And those investments in turn make me more than happy to want to do the same for him.
So now we wanted to share some advice with people. We know not everyone's situation looks the same, but we wanted to share some practical advice that can be applied to everyone's situation. Whether you're just starting out and wanting to bring this up with your significant other, or whether you've been doing it for a while and it's just kind of a struggle or a concern. So first piece of advice that we would give is to figure out your purpose together. A lot of this will involve you personally, but then also having conversations with your spouse about it. More than likely, the way that you like to enjoy the hobby will fall into one of these three camps. It's a business, it's just a hobby, whether it's self-funding or otherwise, or it's a way to bond with others. So for me personally, I look at it more as a business. For others, they kind of like to self-fund their collection, self-fund their opening packs. And for others, they use it to bond with their kids, their spouses. So I think figuring out your purpose together is huge. Think about what you want to get out of it. It's not that can never change as time goes on, but it's good to establish a solid purpose from the start and make your spouse aware of that.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was important that we were on the same page about that. Like Reed said, his purpose has been more business related. Like, he wants to eventually make it his full-time income. So for us, right now it's still a hobby, but I view it a little bit different because I do want him to invest more in that because I want to see him reach that goal eventually. So I think for us, it works really well. Like, every day is a little bit different, but eventually it's something that I enjoy helping him invest in, because I eventually want him to reach his goals of having it be his full-time income. I enjoy helping him to invest in it because that's a big investment for a future.
Yeah, so the next piece of advice kind of goes along with some of the things we've already talked about, but it's all about communication and being open. So obviously on a day-to-day basis, this is super important, very important to communicate what's going on, but also kind of on a macro level. Like if things are changing, if you're starting out with this as kind of more of a side hobby and you're wanting to transition it into a business, it's really good to make your spouse aware of those things so they can support you in those goals. Like Susie mentioned, I've been very clear about me wanting to eventually do this full time. Because she's aware of that, she's able to better support me in that goal. So I guess it's kind of like a help your spouse help you type of scenario where you're communicating with them. If things are changing, you're keeping them in the loop, and then they're aware, they can support you in your goals, whatever they may be. Maybe some people start it as a business and then they want to kind of devolve it into a more of a hobby or a bonding thing with their kids. And that's fine too. Just good to communicate these things with your spouse so again, they can just be aware and there's open dialogue about it.
One example of that is 2 days ago, Reed told me about a card show that he wasn't really thinking about going to, but it was nearby us and it was happening yesterday. It was just in casual conversation, but because I was aware of that, I was like, let's just go check it out. There's actually something in the area that I've been interested in going to. And so he went with me to the thing I wanted to go to, and then we were in the area and he was able to stop by. So I think giving your spouse opportunities, like he said, to support you.
Yeah, totally agree. So the next piece of advice has to do with addressing your spouse's concerns. I think a lot of people's first reaction to when a concern is brought up is to get defensive or to kind of brush it off. You don't want to do that. It's totally legitimate for spouses to be concerned about this hobby. We've seen the Reddit posts, we've seen the YouTube reactions to these things. We all know the scenarios, both during the COVID boom when people lost literally millions to now when people are just ripping packs and it's addictive and they go hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt. Don't get defensive. If you have nothing to hide, if you have no ulterior motives about wrecking your family's finances, there's no reason why you should be defensive about any concerns that are brought up. You can easily explain, help your spouse understand, validate their concerns, and just talk through it together. If you get defensive, your spouse isn't going to understand where you're coming from. You're going to be bitter about it. Just communicate, goes back to communication as well. Talk as much as you need to, address the concerns. It'll be for the best for both of you.
Yeah, I think naturally there's certain things that just the red flags go up, especially when you have a lack of information. Anything that sounds like a get rich quick scheme or like something that sounds high risk, obviously those red flags are going to go up. I think kind of explaining your approach, like how you're going to approach things with your spouse really helps, and showing them that there's ways to do it that are relatively safe and aren't going to just be a money dump. One of Reed's strengths is he's more calculated about it, and I think part of that is it helps that we have separate funds because, obviously he wants to build his money, he doesn't want to lose it, and so he is careful and calculated and he's not rash about things. And because I have seen that, I don't worry at all about decisions he's going to make.
Okay, and the last piece of advice we wanted to share, I think is really important. It's all about including your spouse in the big decisions within your business, your hobby, whatever the case may be. Your spouse may not be the most interested in it. I don't think Susie is the most interested in cards, but I think the feeling of inclusion and the feeling that you're not leaving them out really goes a long way. I try to bring it up in casual conversation, and when we're kind of diving deeper into the topic of my business, I ask her questions about, I'm thinking about multiple options on something, and I'll ask her questions. This goes for the card business. It also goes for the YouTube channel and the profit tracking website that I've built as well. I think it really goes a long way to show your spouse that you value their input. They may not be as informed as you are about the intricate details, but it can also be really helpful to get someone's opinion who's kind of zoomed out a little bit more and who's not in the weeds about it every day. I know for me, Susie's helped me with some really good decisions to help propel things in all aspects of my business. So it can be a win-win. Your spouse will feel good and feel included about it, and they may have some great ideas that you can implement.
And I'm sure some of my ideas have not been great. There are times where there's things I don't understand. Obviously, he's never rude about it, but I don't know, he makes me feel like my input is valued and that I do have good ideas. And I think that when you feel valued, you're willing to invest a lot more. And even if I don't personally want to buy and grade and sell sports cards, I care about it on the level of I care about Reed, and it's something he loves, and so I do care about how his business does, and obviously it brings him a lot of enjoyment. And so it does make me feel really good when he asks for help or opinions about his website, or I actually love when he shares about his successes or the things that he learned, things that didn't go well. Why? Because it lets me know that he views me as his best friend and he includes me in it. So it definitely is something that I care about and I want updates about. And when he asks for my opinion, I genuinely want to give him advice that will be helpful and help him succeed.
So hopefully this was helpful for some of you. I mention a lot that I want us all to succeed in this hobby. It's a big reason why I do the YouTube channel, just sharing the successes and failures. But I think even more than succeeding in the hobby, it's really important to succeed in the relationships that matter most. So this is a huge thing for us. Obviously, it's a huge thing for everyone who's doing this on even a small level, but especially on a bigger level. So if anyone else has any thoughts or comments about this topic, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. You can always reach out to me on Instagram to talk about anything card related. Of course, I want to thank Susie for being willing to do this video with me. Hopefully we'll see her more in the future. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next one.